So today we're going to review for our quiz, and the first 4 topics that you were supposed to learn about were mean, median, mode, and range. Mean is where you add up all the numbers and divide by how many numbers you have. Median is the middle value. Now, with the median, make sure you put the numbers in order from smallest to greatest. So that's the trick for median. You may want to write that down if you think you're going to forget. You have to put the numbers in order from smallest to greatest, and you look for the middle number. If you have 2 middle numbers, you add them together and divide by 2 to get the median. If you have 1 middle number, then that's the middle number, the median. Mode is the number that occurs the most, and you can have more than one mode, and you can have no mode. Range is the biggest number minus the smallest number in a set of data. And you can look through this section of notes in your OneNote to see some examples on mean, median, and mode. So let's also talk about outliers. So an outlier is where you have a number that does not fit in with the rest of the numbers. It can be much smaller or much larger than the rest of the numbers. And an outlier affects your data in several ways. So here's an example of an outlier. So in this example, 14 is our outlier. Right here, 14 is our outlier because it's very different than the other numbers. And what happens is, since that number is so much bigger than the rest of them, when we go to find the mean, it's going to be way too big. So with an outlier, if you're going to find the mean, you would drop the outlier and find the mean without the outlier, because the outlier does what's called skewing the data. It skews the data. If the outlier is much smaller, it skews your mean to be too small. If the outlier is much bigger, it skews your mean to be too big. You need to know how an outlier will affect your mean. You also need to know how an outlier will affect your range. I want you to think about it for a minute. If you have an outlier, like in this example with 14, how is that going to affect your range, which is the difference between the largest number and the smallest number? So an outlier will always make your range too big, regardless if it is a small outlier or a large outlier. So let's write that down. Outliers will always make the range too big. Outliers, small outliers will always make your mean too small. Large outliers will always make your mean too big. So if you have an outlier, mean is not the best choice to use. Instead, use median or mode, whichever seems to be more reflective of your data. So with choose choose median or mode instead of mean. Depending upon which one best represents the spread of data.